All righty. Well, good evening, and thanks for coming out tonight, and thanks to all those online watching. And before I forget, to those online watching, make sure you put your questions in the chat box. Also tonight, on your way out, on the back table, there's a survey from the Education Committee of the Colorado Archaeological Society, of which we're a member. And if you don't mind, like I say, on your way out, if you would sign that and kind of fill that out, and it's on the back table. I appreciate that. May is Archaeological and Historical Preservation Month, and to honor that, we usually have a special speaker. Unfortunately, our scheduled speaker, Mario Medina, is transitioning to a new job, and he was unable to come tonight. And hopefully we can have him in the future. But thanks to former PAHS member who spent years of his life photographing rock art in Southeast Colorado, and the hard work of PAHS members working in the archive at the Rollins Library, we have a special program showing some of those photos for you tonight. Before we get started, I do want to make a few announcements, though. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., join us here at the Heritage Museum for First Friday, featuring Doug Carter and a Pueblo native and Nate Richard, and they're capturing the beauty of flowers through photography, and which is a passion stemming from Doug's biology background. And a lot of the photos you can see around tonight are Doug's. CSU Pueblo history students are doing a presentation on Pueblo in the progressive era in conjunction with an exhibit they worked on here at the Pueblo Heritage Museum. This event is 4 to 7 Saturday, May 4th, and the program will be from 4:15 to 5:15, and then after they give their presentation, you can explore the exhibit that's here at the Heritage Museum. In addition to that, Dr. Matt Harris's students in the U.S. History Department, and Judy, I'm going to butcher this last name, Gons, okay. Her students in ancient Greece are doing a history colloquium Monday, May 6th, from 10:30 to 12:50 on the second floor of the CSUP library. And I have more information if you're interested in that. Just at the end of the program tonight, just ask me about it. Also, too, PAHS has a photographic display over at the Fuel and Iron food hall. So you might want to visit that for May Archaeological and Historical Preservation Month. We do have some upcoming field trips, and a lot of you probably already know about them, and some of you have signed up for them. Saturday, May 11th, we'll take a members-only field trip to the Pinyon Canyon Maneuver Site, and it's guided by site archaeologist Carrie Pittman. There are 2 spots left. And if you're a member of PAHS and interested in seeing some unique archaeological and historic sites, see me after the program or email me probably in the next day or so, no later than that, if you're interested. The Warfano County Historical Society is sponsoring a field trip to the historic Kenner Ranch and the Caceres Canyon. The trip will be May 18th from 9 to 1, and a reservation is not required. But for planning purposes, they would like you to contact them. And I have that information. If you're interested, just let me know and I'll get that information to you. Saturday, May 25th, the Colorado Rock Art Association and PAHS are sponsoring a members-only field trip to the Hickland Springs Rock Art Site. So if you missed this trip last year, now's your a chance to see some of the unique rock art at the Hickland Springs site. And again, for more information, let me know and I'll get it to you. And you'll see some of these, the slides we have in our program tonight are from Hickland Springs. So, and I'll point those out to you. But if you're interested in that, let me know. Oh, you know what? And Emily just gave me something here to announce tonight. Heritage Night on the 15th is not going to be here at the Heritage Museum. It'll be at the Rollins Library in the Riles Room, and it'll be the Ladies of Many Hats. And that's on the 15th of May. And she didn't give me a time, but I'm going to assume it's 7 o'clock. And if you need more information on that, you could just contact Emily here at the museum. Let's see. Saturday, May 11th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, the Pioneer Cemetery at 20th and Montezuma is having their annual spring cleanup. All are welcome and needed. If going, bring a rake or bring rakes, hand tools, if you have them, also gloves, hat, sunscreen. Trash bags will be provided along with refreshments. Also at the Pioneer Cemetery, Monday, May 27th at 8:30 a.m., there will be a Memorial Day observance. This event is open to the public, and there will be the posting of colors by the Pueblo Veterans Ritual Team, Pledge of Allegiance, prayer and songs, along with a patriotic reading followed by a 21-gun salute, taps, and the benediction. If you haven't been joining in our PAHS book discussion groups, now's your chance to get started. You're going to have plenty of time to read this book. We're not going to have the discussion till Monday, August 26th. Again, lots of time. It'll be at 6. It's a Zoom meeting, 6:30 p.m. And the book we're going to discuss is Creating the American West, Boundaries and Borderlines by Derek R. Everett. And there's more information in the May-June midden, and you can look in there and get a little bit more information about the book. If you're not getting our newsletter, our bi-monthly newsletter, the midden, you can sign up for it back here on this back table. Just leave us your name and your email, and every other month you'll get the midden. As always, PAHS takes June, July, and August off for membership meetings, but keep your eyes open for emails and the midden for upcoming summer events, such as our popular July summer party, which we now have a date for, will be July 14th. So mark your calendar. You don't want to miss that. Is there any other announcements? Does anybody have anything to announce that maybe I've missed? Okay, we're going to get started here, but before we do get started, I would like to mention I'm not a rock art expert, so please be kind to me with your questions. As I have been viewing the rock art over the years and trying to interpret and learn what the people of the past are trying to convey in the rock art, I didn't read that right. As I have been viewing rock art over the years and trying to interpret and learn what the people of the past are trying to convey in rock art, I would, that doesn't make sense. But anyway, I'd also like you to see the program as an opportunity to take an interest and learn and better appreciate and interpret the messages from the past. So Ann Whitfield, come on up here, Ann, is going to do an introduction to the program. She was knew Dale Crandall, whose photographs these are, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the program and Dale Crandall. So take it away, Ann.
Thank you. How many of you knew Dale Crandall? Oh, come on, 2, 3, 4. Oh, man. Well, you should have known it. He was a really fun guy, and he was a really inquisitive guy, and he was a rascal. Anyway, tonight, the program that you're going to see is one that he put together 30 years ago, maybe even more. Many of the sites that you will see in this program, you cannot see on site because they're on private land, and these landowners are very protective of this. I'll very quickly give you a little bit of Dale's background, but I've time costed this thing, and I'm going to come in under 3 minutes because Doug is the main show. Anyway, about Dale. I can't say that I know a lot about the details of Dale's early life. He kind of kept that close to the vest. He lived on a ranch in eastern Colorado and had a family. I think he had another job as well. He was personable and gregarious. As a divorcee, he was a terrible flirt. He really was. I had hoped one of our members would be here tonight because he's very much in love with her. And he just pursued her and she didn't give him a minute. Anyway, here's what I know. I know that he is 97 if he is still alive. Unfortunately, I can't reach him. I have tried and I heard from him back in fall, but I can't raise him. He has returned to Colorado and living with family members. He was intelligent, I don't want to use past tense because I keep hoping. Dell is intelligent and curious about his world and what's in it. He became interested in rock riding long ago. He was the go-to guy if you wanted to see rock art in southeastern Colorado. He led many trips for PAHS. Worked with Gary Morris-Kinney. You remember that fella? He was president of this group. And he gave more than one program here in Pueblo. Because of his charm and friendliness, he knew most of the area ranchers in southeastern Colorado. He was trusted and allowed to go on private land. Apparently, everybody's private land because a number of these things I don't think have ever sight signing. I don't think have ever been recorded. And so when at the Colorado Rock Art Association archive at the library, when this collection of his came in, it was astounding to me how little of it I had ever seen. And that being an interest of mine, it was very humbling. Dale led the numerous field trips to the sites that we discussed, and he collaborated with authors Bill McGlone, Ted Barker, and other regional researchers. He moved to Moab, Utah, and the reason he did this was the abundance of rock art there. That ever entering new things and curiosity and exploration, he began to do sculpture and had some of his pieces in a local gallery in Moab. He was always the auctioneer with very wry humor at the silent auction for Urara, Utah's counterpart of the rock art statewide group. He was funny and he was fun to be around, and I will miss him if he's missing. This sounds terrible. And I really tried hard to both get in touch with him or to get pictures of him, and nothing was happening. Okay, I talked about the excellent photographic collection he left to the archive. And I want you to know that Sylvia and Phyllis, if you folk could raise your hands, are the newest volunteers helping us write the descriptors for this catalog so we can get it out and make it available to you folk online. Wonderful images. He was a pretty good photographer as well. The collection is perhaps the most comprehensive, well-documented photographic collection of rock art in southern Colorado. Though Dell was not a professional archaeologist, his contribution to archaeological knowledge is profound. How else, other than through oral traditions, can you and I get a real glimpse of what indigenous lifeways were long ago? But with rock art, you have pictures of their dress, and there were many styles according to what tribal group you belonged to. What was important to them. We've just been surveying a site in which there are horses everywhere. So, you know what was going on then for the horse tribes. You know something about their spiritual life. You see pictures of their deities and so forth. You know something about their political outlook, because of course there were tribal cooperations and so forth. And you can even see some of that in the rock art. So what better way to get a view of their worldview through kind of an indelible record, maybe without words, but we are visual creatures and we can get it even without the words. So I like to introduce you to a quintessential example of the value of avocational archaeology. Bill Crandall, one of the ancient ones.
All righty. Thank you, Anne. And what I'm going to show you tonight is just a sampling of the photographic archive of Del Crandall. So we're going to start out. These following images are from the lower Arkansas drainage. And some of those rivers and places are the Apishipaw River, Purgatory River, Carrizo Creek, Smith Canyon, Rural Creek, Clay Creek, Two Buttes Creek, and Picture Canyon. Our first picture here is a picture of the Purgatory River. And then we're going to move on to homesteads in southeast Colorado. And I have a few photos of that. This is, of course, the ruins of a homestead. Not quite sure where it's at. And like I say, if you have questions, go ahead and fire away and I'll repeat it for. And what?
Big presenter.
Yeah, and me have to. Yeah. She's the expert, that's for sure. Okay, anyway, and here's an aerial view of a homestead in Apishipaw Canyon. And if I go too fast or too slow, let me know. Here's another homestead out there on the plains, and I love this one, the hawk sitting up in the tree with its nest down there about halfway down, the old windmill. This is a good one. And next, a homestead with the lonely piano still out front. Another good one. And some of the older residents of southeast Colorado, and of course, a lot of you have probably seen this, dinosaur tracks down in Picket Wire Canyon. And then we have more dinosaur tracks in Picket Wire. Who's all been down to Picket Wire and seen these? Quite a few people. It's really something to go and see. And some of the newer residents of southeast Colorado. And of course, you have the tarantulas, which are quite common in southeast Colorado. And of course, the pronghorn antelope. And of course, bison, which I am not so sure are real common anymore. Maybe a few on the ranches. Mule deer, of course. And the bighorn sheep, which from what I'm hearing for some of the ranchers are more and more common. Used to be not that long ago, they were almost gone in southeast Colorado, but it sounds like the canyons are starting to repopulate with the bighorn sheep. Okay, some plants that you would see out in southeast Colorado, and of course, the walking stick or the cholla. Flowering plant from the morning glory family. And of course, the prickly pear cactus, Indian paintbrush. Okay. Historic tribes featured in this presentation. First of all, you have the Apache. Up to the 1700s, they had some presence on the plain, but mostly occupied western Colorado. The Comanche drifted into the area and dominated by the 1750. And of course, they had mastered the horse and kind of took over the area. Utes, they had some presence, but moved west into the mountains. The Cheyenne and Arapaho in 1820, they moved into the area. And from 1830 until 1870, they dominated. Euro-Americans, of course, in the early 1800s, they began to arrive in great numbers, starting, of course, with Zebulon Pike in his Southwest expedition, and then, of course, Stephen F. Long and other explorers into the area. In limited presence, you had the Navajo from the south and the Rio Grande peoples from the west. In truth, most of the nomadic and plain tribes probably passed through the area at one time or another. Some historic and prehistoric structures. And this first one is more than likely a sheep herder's, or the remains of a sheep herder's habitation site. And then we have, can everybody see my circle there? See that stone circle in there? This stone circles is probably more than likely a Pishipaw. Is that correct, Ann?
Mhm.
Pishipaw, and they would stand the stones straight up. These have all fallen down, and they would take tree branches and stuff and go over the top, and then cover the top of that with either more branches or hides and mud. And I think I got a couple more examples of the stone circle. There's another one. And I think they would dig out the middle also and then stack the stones around there and then cover them. And then we have an overhang, and this is really a good picture of an overhang. I think if I had to live back in those times, this would be the site I would pick. That looks pretty well protected to me. And it looks like from this picture, it was used quite a bit too. All righty. And then we have teepee rings. And if you look back here, you can kind of see how these stones are stacked in a circle. And then I believe we have part of another teepee ring up front. And what they would do is they build their teepee and put these stones on the base of the logs they were using to make their teepee to hold them down. And so when there's spots where you can go out there and you can just see these teepee rings sitting out there on the prairie. Out in southeastern Colorado, there have been 4 Folsom points back to 10,000 before present, and 8 Hell's Gap points found, 8,000 before present, found in southeastern Colorado. Now, this point over here is probably not a Folsom or a Hell's Gap point, but it could be a knife too. But anyway, and then here's another example, and this probably is a knife, and it's a nice picture. And then we have a bedrock matati, and especially under the overhangs, you find a lot of these bedrock matatis that were used to grind seeds. And they're well worn. We unfortunately, don't have an image of a mono. And a mono would be something they would hold in their hand to grind the seeds and in these matatis. And then the next is an example of a matati that was portable. I say it's portable. They were heavy. They probably could move it around the campsite, but would leave it and use it again the next year when they returned. A lot of these people were nomadic. Rock art types and descriptions. Pecked abstract is spirals, snake-like figures, grids, rakes, and cross hatchings. Pecked representational, quadrupeds, simple feet, some horned, a few antlered, and they may represent deer, elk, sheep, or antelope. The purgatory style, quadrupeds and anthropomorphs. People have few details, and some have horned headdresses, atlatls present, some bows and arrows. The regional style is pecked outlines, some interior stippling or stipple pecking, horned headdresses and masks, and heart lines occasionally. And we'll have examples of all these. Plains biographic, incised lines, action figures, horses, weapons, teepees, with detailed costumes, parallel lines and grooves, and then Ogham. And this is a little bit controversial, but anyway, we'll see some examples of what could be Ogham. And their vertical line series as an expression of the ancient written language, Celtic language. So like I say, kind of controversial, but anyway, we'll see examples of things that could be Ogham. How old is it? Late Archaic, 3,000 to 1,850 before present, has abstractions, simple quadrupeds, early developmental, 1,850 years ago to 1,150 before present. See quadrupeds, U-shaped hooves and branching antlers. Late developmental, 1,150 to 900 before present. Magnificent headgear, static anthropomorphs with lizard hands, bows and arrows, spears, atlatls, diversification, 900 to 500 before present, stick figures, nets and spears, quadrupeds with antlers, a pishapop, 900 to 500 before present. You have heart lines, head masks, bows and arrows, and representations of agriculture. Proto-historic, 500 to 225 before present. Apache, Comanche, Kiowa, Cheyenne, shows horses, action figures, teepees, costumes, weapons, and war items, and includes Rio Grande evidence. I'm not really quite sure what that means. And then historic, of course, when the European Americans came into this territory. And these are dated by Larry Lohendorf, which I think a lot of archaeologists agree on those dates. An example, a PECT abstract. And let me get caught up here. 5,000 to 1,000 before present. And you can see a lot of it is lines and up to interpretation, I guess, when it comes to abstract rock art. Anne could probably tell you a lot about some of these, but I think a lot of it's just up to interpretation, probably counting and marking things and whatever. More abstract artwork. And as you can see, just a lot of lines. And, and I've also heard that maybe some of these abstract lines and stuff are maps of the area or directions to hunting areas and stuff. So, like I say, up to interpretation, more abstract. This is late archaic PECT abstract. And if you look over to the right, somebody gave us a picture of what could be a calculator, looks to me. But up to interpretation, that's right. But somebody was probably forward thinking and thought they would put that there. But again, a lot of squiggly lines and hence the word abstract. This is one of the oldest representations of abstract art in Colorado. And when they say one of the oldest, I'm not quite sure how old it might be, but old.
North America. That one's
What did I say?
Colorado, but that one's
in North America. Okay, thank you, Anne. More abstract artwork. And again, abstract squiggly lines. There's concentric circle. I know has a meaning, and I've been told what it has been interpreted as meaning, but I've forgotten. But I think it has to do with the sun, if I remember right. Is that right, Ann?
Could be, yeah.
Okay. And then again, more abstract. And if I'm going too fast, just say slow down. Okay, we got PECT representational style 3,500 to 1,500 before present. And here we have quadrupeds. And they're completely pecked out. And what they do is they would get a surface that is what's the word I'm looking for, Ann? Patina it, heavily patina it, and peck off the patina, and then you've got a quadruped. And here is more. And here, in this one, you have tracks going over to the other side, and quadrupeds, and a little bit of abstract lines over here. And and now we're to purgatory petroglyph style, 1500 before present to 500 before present. Again, a quadruped, and his neck is pecked out, making him a little bit more prominent. And you can see there's a little bit of older rock art underneath him and over here to the right. And a lot of times you'll find that with the rock art. People later on will come in and put their rock art over somebody else's rock art. How rude, yeah. Okay, this is Carrizo Springs. And down there, there's these anthropomorphs with these huge antlers. And there's a bunch of representations. I have a few here of these quadrupeds with these huge antlers. Now, Ann was telling me, and I'm not going to put Ann on the spot here, but she had read somewhere where there was maybe back in the day, some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? A gene had give me a word, Ann.
Okay, they're called sports, where an animal will have one characteristic that just goes a little wonky. And so they have some fossil evidence of deer with these magnificent antlers. So it's not just imaginary, apparently, in this region.
Okay, thank you. And here we have more representations of these antlers, these huge antlers. I like the one on the right. Yeah. Okay, here we have a turtle. And then if you look really close, and you have to look really close, we have a snake, and up here at the top is a hand. And so you can interpret this how you want. Is the snake biting somebody's hand, or maybe they're enticing the snake into their hand for some reason? But that's kind of a cool one there. I like that one. And then we have probably a shaman with the lizard hands, and he is probably praying that they kill when they're out hunting all these animals, or like I say, interpret it how you would like. But yeah, a horned shaman, and the lizard hands, I'm not quite sure what the lizard hands represents. And again, on the right, you have an anthropomorph with lizard hands, and then two atlatls. And to the left of the atlatls, I'm not sure what that cross-like thing is. And then a horned anthropomorph with a headdress. I guess the headdress is the horns. Looks like this guy's been eating well. Or else maybe that's his clothes that are puffed out like that. And then more anthropomorphs. And again, the guy in the center here with the lizard hands. And more anthropomorphs with lizard hands. And of course, the horned headdresses. And then quadrupeds, including bison. And if you look at this one, they have the internal stippling. And you have quite a representation of different animals here. A horse with a blanket, maybe a blanket. And this is a cool one. here's a warrior, and you can see his headdress going all the way down. He's sitting on his war horse. And probably at one time you could see his weapons. They've worn off. Plains biographic style, and this is all proto-historic. And here you have an anthropomorph, and Anne was saying maybe of not sure what gender this is because of the way it is made, but anyway, like I say, up to interpretation. And you have facial features. You got a nose and eyes on this. And then another warrior with a headdress. Unfortunately, somebody tried to steal this one. And you can see where they tried to peck it out or hack it out of there. And they, right up here where his head was, it broke off. So they stopped. They ruined it and they quit, unfortunately. And here we have the crybabies. This is my favorite panel. And it's called the crybabies panel because all these warriors look like they're crying, but actually it's face paint. And they're sitting on horses, again, the big lizard hands, and they probably getting ready to go out to battle. And anthropomorphs again. The one on the right even has maybe a representation of hair or some sort of headdress. It has a V-neck, and the V-neck, I'm going to forget what that means, but it's a certain style of this period that comes into play in this period. And okay, and this is another cool one. This is down in Picture Canyon, and this is called the Spotted Woman. And unfortunately, somebody chalked it in probably a long time ago. So make a note here, never chalk in the rock art when you see it. It's a big no-no. Anyway, it's thought that this woman had smallpox and she has passed away. Arms bent, I've been told, means they're dead. And also too, at the top up here, there's this shell type thing that also is a symbol of death. So apparently this is a symbol of a woman who got smallpox, probably when the early settlers came in and she had died. This is a warrior in ceremonial tradition, and this is panel is said to commemorate a treaty. And if you look at them, there's two spears pointed downward, and as a meaning of peace. And it looks like over on the to the right of them, there used to be another warrior that is worn off. And here you have another warrior that was, if he did this himself, which he probably did, he's real proud of himself. And you, as you can see his bow, and then he's got a club in his left hand and a club in his right hand. And a couple more warriors. The one on the right, you can't see his head, but he probably has a horned headdress also. And now we're getting the rock art with more facial features and details in their clothing. This is really another good slide. Here you have a warrior, and he only has one leg, and he's this is on top of a rock, so he's laying down, and he's got a spear or an arrow pointed down to where that leg's missing. So you can kind of wonder or think about what might have happened to this guy. It looks like an arrow coming in from up here too. So probably in battle, he lost his leg. And here's another anthropomorph, apparently wounded by an arrow. And you can see in each hand, he's got, you see the arrow going into him here. And then he's got a lance and his coup stick in his left hand here. And then you see his clothes. Another warrior with his decorated spear and a possible axe in his left hand. Another warrior with the fringes and the feathered headdress, and he's holding a bow also. And here we have another warrior with feather and headdress and details of his dress with a bow. And I thought this warrior was sitting, but the closer you look at it, he's not. He's standing, and you can see he's got some fringes on his leggings down here. And then you can see his bow pointed down. He's got an arrow notched in there, ready to go. And his headdress. He's got his eyes and nose. Okay, this is a buffalo. It looks like somebody has chalked him in also at one time or another. Lots of representations of birds, and I have a few here. And these are really cool. And apparently birds were sacred to the natives. They didn't eat them, but they probably represented the freedom of being able to soar and get away and maybe take their spirit into the sky. So these are some good representations of birds. This bird on the left has a heart line. Bird on the right is a thunderbird. Again, a buffalo. And back on a previous slide, there were lines like this on a horse that were said to represent a blanket, but I'm sure this buffalo doesn't have a blanket. So maybe it was suggested that he's been wounded and this is blood pouring down off his hump there. But again, up to interpretation. And here we have a jackrabbit, and this is a cool one. You can see his big ears and his legs there, or his jackalope, and a feline. Okay, on the left, you have a representation of human intercourse, but it's not in the teepee. It's represented on the right. Okay, this one's hard to see, but apparently it possibly might represent a wedding. And if you look really close, and I know it's hard to see, the detail in the clothes and everything is really interesting, and it looks like they are possibly holding hands here. And so that's why it's interpreted as a possible wedding picture. Okay, parallel lines and grooves. Bill McGlone, who is a professor at Otero Junior College, an intelligent and creative avocational archaeologist and engineer by profession, proposed the idea that and you'll see the representations coming up, that lines and grooves were ogham, an ancient Celtic form of writing. This created quite an uproar and opposition from professional archaeologists. This led to sensitive efforts to prove or disprove the theory. In the end, Bill himself had doubts, and some of the grooves appear to be artifacts of tool making, some counting marks, but the meaning remains uncertain. And after you see some of the next slides, it's again up to interpretation. And I think there's still people out there when we go on field trips and stuff that are adamant that this is Ogham writing that the ancient Celts had visited this area at one time and left behind their marks. And you'll especially see these it seems to me, at archaeoastronomy sites in southern Colorado. So these next slides are going to be representations of parallel lines and grooves and possibly Ogham. And here are some of the representations. And I was talking to Anne about a lot of these, and she was telling me that she thought a lot of these, in her opinion, were tool markings. And the way she explained it really made sense, that these wider ones were possibly, and if you think about it, they had to sharpen their tools, possibly to sharpen their axes, And maybe the more the thin ones were arrow shaft sharpeners, or maybe to sharpen a knife, which makes a little bit more sense. But I have been to an archaeoastronomy site that is claimed to be Ogham, and unfortunately I don't have a representation here. But yeah, that's kind of convincing when you see that. Or this one.
Is there a date on these? I mean, you say they're sharpening tools, like metal tools?
It could be maybe, but probably more likely rock tools. And as far as the date, help me out here, Ann, for Ogham.
They're through almost all time periods, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, and yes,
I question the sharpening theory simply because it's sandstone. It's so soft. I would think they'd rather find igneous rock and sharpen them.
okay, for those online, one of our audience is questioning the sharpening theory because it's sandstone, and he's saying that you wouldn't sharpen your tool on sandstone, which also makes sense. Like I say, it's up to interpretation, a lot of this stuff. Some of it, yeah, that makes sense. Some of it's not sandstone though. And so,
Yeah, if there's an igneous rock.
yeah. Here's a bunch more lines, and these are all real thin and at different lengths, at different thicknesses, but mostly thin. So sharpening or straightening arrows or Ogham.
Could it possibly be, I mean, what is the level of the complexity of human thought? Because there have been a young man who said, I'm gonna sharpen this on sandstone today. Am I gonna sharpen this on igneous?
Okay, the question is what's the complexity of human thought?
Maybe, should we give them more credit for being creative? I don't know.
Okay, and the audience member wants to know if we should give them more credit for being creative. I would, the complexity of human thought. I'm sure there was a lot of thought put into what they did and why they did it and when they did it. I really can't give you a good answer to that question, though. I'm just, like I said, you have to be kind to me on these questions. But that was above my pay grade. Yeah, and that's right. And that was it. That's one interpretation, is to sharpen the shafts. Okay, for those online, we have another audience member saying the sandstone grooves could be used to sharpen the spear or arrow shafts because it is sandstone. Mhm. Okay. Here, to me, these lines represent counting. Somebody's counting something because they're mostly in the same length, and then you have lines on the bottom and on the top, if you noticed. So I'm going to say somebody's counting something here. Okay, now we're going to move into pictographs. And of course, pictographs are painted images. They're uncommon. And the reason that they're uncommon, I don't know. Most were painted with various forms of iron oxides or charcoal. And here you have a pronghorn. And this is in Picture Canyon. You know what? And I need to, as we were going through all these slides, I was going to point out the slides that were taken in Hickland Springs. The next site we're going to on a field trip, and I forgot. So, but okay, some of them were labeled. So anyway, moving on. This is a hunting scene, and it's split in two. And on the left, you can see the anthropomorphs, and they're hunting with atlatls. And on the right, you see an atlatl in some sort of a quadruped. Anyway, it looks like they were successful, or maybe they were hoping they would be successful. And they painted this picture to hopefully have a good hunt. Again, a hunting scene has horned quadrupeds with anthropomorphs and atlatls, and there's some overpecking done at a later time, and perhaps this shows a desire to successfully from somebody later to successfully kill similar animals, or possibly a prayer for hunting success. This is a possible murder scene. And in here, if you look real close, you see horse tracks coming in from this direction, and from here. And then you see this guy laying down. And he's got his bow, but he's apparently dead. And these two guys apparently killed him. And they decided they probably did a good thing, so they ought to record it. And there it is. There's the evidence of the crime. Javelina. And then we're going to get into the historic rock art, starting about 225 years ago. And everybody knows this guy, Kit Carson. Oh, and does somebody have a question? I'm not sure where that one's at. Andy?
I don't know. Many of these we don't want to say, even if we do know, because location is a sensitive thing in terms of going on private land and so forth. So you will just have to accept that it's in the region.
And as in the next few slides, especially, you'll see why the locations of a lot of this rock art can't be told, because you'll see all the evidence of graffiti and vandalism on the rock art. So a lot of it you just can't mention where it's at. This is really faded over the years. The first time I saw this, I was totally astounded, but it was explained to me that it's 3 conquistadors, and there's 1, 2, 3, and they have their pantaloons. And this guy here, you can't see it, but he had a pipe. And anyway, they're probably 3 or 4 times the size of a normal human being. They're up on a rock facing way up off the ground. And like I say, I sat there with my mouth open the first time I saw it. It was astounding because they're huge. And so possibly done by conquistadors coming through the area back in the 1600s, possibly. Okay, this is why a lot of the rock art locations can't be given out. Here on the left is an 1874 photo of the famous bear. And it was taken by Byron Guernsey, published in Harper's Magazine in 1874. This is the same picture of that bear fairly recently. And if you'll notice the graffiti and vandalism at this site, it even says up here, please don't deface the bear. You can't quite see that very well, but all around this, all around the bear and nearby, there's and most of this was probably done at the turn of the century, into the late 1800s, into the early 1900s. A lot of people went in there on picnics. They carved their name or their initials, but they put their date too. So like I say, probably I'm going to say 70 to 80% of the graffiti was done back then. Into the 20s and 30s, you don't see a very little graffiti after that time at this site. It's fairly well protected site right now.
Is that a brown bear?
Looks like a black bear to me. But I don't know. All up to interpretation. But it's big, it's huge. But yeah, you see somebody chalked them in and I don't know. You get disgusted when you see stuff like that. Some of the rock art that's near highways and stuff and isn't protected is ruined. I'm thinking Vogel Canyon. Yes, sir. Pardon me?
Go ahead and finish.
Okay. This is at Hickland Springs. And there's a lot of historic rock art in at Hickland Springs. Really cool, unique historic rock art. If like I say, we're taking a field trip there. If you're interested in going, the historic rock art's incredible, and there's a lot of prehistoric rock art there also too. There's a lot to see there, and it's easy to get to. Anyway, here's a ship. A marijuana leaf. This was, I think, you can't quite see the date down here, 1975. So that's how modern that is. This is an advertisement for Valley Monuments, and I'm not quite sure where this is at, but obviously maybe at a old abandoned town or something. Somebody wanted to advertise their monuments. And over on the right, this might possibly be a representation of a monument that they might make, or else it's balled off. Who knows? This drawing of a horse. These are at Hickland Springs also. On the left is R.W. Riggs from Los Animas. And then over on the right is a gloved hand pointing at something. Actually, there's two gloved hands. There's one on the top, one on the bottom. What they're pointing at, I couldn't tell you. But you can see a date down here. Almost see it. It's I think 18 something. And the one on the left has an old date also. I can't quite see. Okay, a representation of a tiger, maybe a mountain lion, or somebody just wanted to draw a cat. I don't know. And whether this guy did it and did it on this date, it's up to interpretation. This is obviously Spanish, done in 1919, obviously, with Spanish crosses, the Spanish writing. And in southern Colorado, especially when you get into the Pinyon Canyon area and out there on the Southeast Plains, there's a lot of representations of Spanish rock art and art. Where the field trip we're taking to the Pinyon Canyon maneuver site will be going to an old barn, and inside that old barn, there's these life-size pictures that a sheep herder has painted inside this barn that are incredible. And so anyway, those going on the Pinyon Canyon tour will get to see that. And there's also some other Spanish type drawings and Spanish initials and things like that. And over on the left, you have old Bill Pike, and on the right, A.L. Zane. And then Wilbur Chambers, and he was real proud of his 22 rifle. And this is on May 27th of, it would have to be 1916. But a guy loves his gun when he has to carve it into the rock. Okay, this is again at Hickland Springs, another gloved hand. And C.J. Nemec, 1916. And then something else, and this says 1894. There obviously was something else there.
Oh, yeah.
Say it again. Oh, Bourne. Oh, there you go. And the end. Okay, we had a question over here.
People talk over the farming or, whatever, on a rock with rain eventually help out that spot.
Okay, the question is a gentleman had about the chalking in of some of the rock art. And the way I understand, a lot of this rock art is in protected overhangs and stuff where maybe it doesn't get the moisture, but also when you chalk it, it adheres, especially to sandstone, adheres to it and gets absorbed. And once it's chalked, I don't know how long it would take for it to wear away. But yeah, because I'm sure some of that has been done probably in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and it's still chalked in. The bare panel, I have no idea when that was chalked in, but it's been like that for quite some time. Any other questions? Yes.
Spring, that's what came my grand.
Oh, yeah. We have a gentleman here that
Dad's name in 19. But in 1938, it was registered there in Weldon in Colorado.
Really?
Walden, Colorado.
Walden, he's has been to Hickland Springs, and his father's brand is in part of the rock art at Hickland Springs. In his
Quarter circle underneath.
and
7 and the 8 should draw.
how old? When do you think that was registered? What year?
Well, there was a 1932 date right next to it.
Okay,
Well, that's where it was carved in the rock and picked.
right. So it
I
made
don't know the history, the far back as I could go was 1918. And it was registered again in Walden, Colorado. But more recently, well, my dad registered that brand in 1940.
okay. Okay, he's saying that the brand was registered in 1914, but was carved into the rock in 1932 at Hickland Springs.
No, I don't know, but no, I currently have that brand.
Oh, and the brand is registered in the our member's name still. Cool. Yeah, I'm sorry, John. Okay, we have another question back here.
So looking at the early rock arts, were only certain people allowed to carve in the rocks, like shaman? Because later on, when I assume a young warrior carves his own image, it feels more democratic. Like something is going on in the society that anyone with a horse who's proud of his achievements is allowed to carve on a rock, not the shaman only.
She's asking if in the really early rock art, if only certain people like shamans were allowed to carve in the rock art. And that's a really good question, and I don't have an answer to that question. That's another one above my pay grade. But it's very possible. It makes sense. So, any more questions?
Look at today's graffiti.
I'm sorry?
Look at today's graffiti. Can't help but wonder some of that isn't there too.
Yeah. So any other questions?
Yeah, what you said was the numeric values for the verticals and horizontal lines. That's basically what the Mayans in the Aztecs were doing. If you were in Mexico City, like the Teotihuacan city, and you can actually see it the same way. And you can see a book where they're talking that the Aztecs came from this area.
Mhm.
They kept moving south, and they ended up in the lake, the Tenochtitlan Lake, because she's so evil. But if you read their story, they say that they came out of southeastern Colorado.
Okay. For the people online, we have a gentleman here that's seeing the similarity between the abstract lines, the horizontal and vertical lines, that he's seeing the similarity of those to what you see down in Mexico that the Aztecs did. It is saying that possibly the Aztecs started up here, since those are really some of the oldest rock art, and migrated south. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine.
Yeah, the Mayans and Aztecs. Yeah, very good point. Any other questions?
Was the man who took these photos 30 years ago, you said he was more of an amateur sort of archaeologist? I'm just wondering how accurate can they be on the dating of some of these images? I mean, I imagine as experts in the field that is, determined by weather and, about, how old they might be, but you say some of them are semi or fully protected, maybe in caves even, or overhangs.
Yeah.
Gee. So I'm just wondering if, anybody else has maybe come through and, tried to determine some of the age of these pictures.
The question is, gentleman has a question about the dating of a lot of this rock art. And the answer I would give to that is there's a body of professionals out there that really spend a lot of time studying this rock art. And they have been able to come up with, I think, fairly accurate dating of a lot of this. And I think at this point, we can probably go by what the dates they have given to a lot of this rock art. Like maybe the Plains biographic. Well, you have horses, and the horses, we know when the horses came is when the Spanish came and brought them here. And you go by things like that. Okay. Any other questions? Well, thanks. Oh, one other thing, we're not cleaning up. Just leave the chairs and everything. And everybody, there's plenty of goodies up here. Get some more and visit and say hello to